Hey, it's Jeremy Miner, founder of 7th Level. Now, in this training video, I'm going to break down the Wolf of Wall Street, Jordan Belfort's, one of his sales calls. I don't know if it's a live one or if it's a role play, but I'm going to break down everything he does. I'm going to show you the techniques he's using so you can spot it. Then I'm going to show you some tweaks that I would personally make myself, okay? Now, if you're unfamiliar with who I am, I had close to an 18-year sales career. I sold in 4 completely different industries, 2 business to consumer and 2 business to business. I made a bit under $33 million in straight commissions in those 4 industries in that close to 18-year sales career. But who cares about me? Let's go to the training video. I hope you enjoy this.
Hello.
Hey, how are you, Jordan Belfort?
Hey,
Nice to meet you.
nice to meet you.
Thanks for taking the meeting.
Thanks for coming in.
Great. Having a good day?
So far, so good.
Yeah.
So far, so good. Sorry to do this. I've only got about 20 minutes.
No problem. I get it.
So I want to be playful. So when they walk in, okay, it doesn't matter if they're the biggest CEO of the Fortune 100 company. I did this all the time when I sold at the enterprise level. They'd walk in like, hey, Jeremy Miner. I looked you guys up line. It says mainly good things about your company. And I'll be all playful. And they'd be like, oh, and they would just laugh. Their guard literally comes down. Now, you can't like be in a serious tone like, hey, Jeremy Miner, I looked up your company and it's mainly good things about it. That's going to be weird and they're going to get defensive. You have to use that playful tone. So a little tweak there. Hey, Jeremy Miner. Hey, Jeremy Miner. I know we have about 20 minutes or so. I did look you up line. It mainly said good things about you, and I'm just playful, okay? And what happens? I'm not trying to be a class clown, but the ultimate goal is to get the prospect to let their guard down. Okay, it's just a disarming technique. When the prospect laughs, it releases dopamine in their brain. Okay, causes them to laugh. And now they're a little bit, slowly but surely, they let their guard down. Just a little tweak I would do. Jordan does a great job here. Just a little tweak I would do, okay?
Thanks for coming in.
Great. Having a good day?
So far, so good.
Yeah.
So far, so good. Sorry to do this. I've only got about 20 minutes.
Now, another tweak I would do, instead of saying having a good day or how are you today, a lot of salespeople say that, and that's fine. I typically want to say something different because if I say the same thing that every prospect is used to most salespeople saying, like, how are you doing today? Or how's your day? Or are you having a good day? A lot of times, unless they're like an easier prospect, especially if they're A-type, they're used to salespeople saying that. So they're associating you with all the other salespeople that they don't like, okay? You're triggering fight or flight in their brain by using the same verbiage. So I might just re-language it. You can say the same thing, but you re-language it because they're not used to that script. They're not used to that pattern. So I might say, so what's going on in your neck of the woods today? So what's going on in your neck of the woods today? Is there any trouble you're creating or what's going on? And I'm just playful. It's a different way to ask the same question, but the prospect's not used to that verbiage. Okay, so I'm not triggering any guard coming up. Okay, let's keep going here.
No problem. I get it.
Hopefully we get to the bottom of things.
Perfect. So real quick,
Now, another thing, I know I'm being picky here. I love Jordan. I'm just always analyzing everything here. So another thing that I would change when the prospect says, hey, I've only got 20 minutes. I can't remember what he said. He's like, hey, I only got 20 minutes. So hopefully we get to the point or something like that. What that means is the prospect is showing you or her authority. Like they're framing you. Now, consciously, they don't know they're doing that. They're just showing you like, you're a salesperson. I don't have a lot of time. Get to the point. They're basically saying that. So you don't want to just jump in and start selling or talking or, oh, I appreciate it. Yes, I'll be quick. So thankful to be here in the meeting, which Jordan didn't do that, obviously, but you never want to do that. I instantly want to take that frame back. So I might look down at my watch. Oh, geez, you must have a lot of time on your hands today of 20 minutes. I've got maybe 10, 15 max before I've got to get my Uber to my next appointment. Should we go ahead and get started? Just something like that. I'm playful and then I'm serious. It raises my status. It's called situational status in social dynamics, okay? Oh, geez, you must hear my tone, the playful tone. Oh, goodness, you must have a lot of time on your hands around here. I've got maybe 10, 12 minutes before my next appointment. Should we go ahead and get started? And bam, you're right there. I got maybe 10 or 12 minutes before I've got to get my driver to pick me up for the next appointment. Should we go ahead and get started? And instantly you're going to see the guard come down from the prospect and they're going to view you as like, oh, they've got other people they're talking to. They're busy. It's not something a salesperson would ever do. And it actually raises your status, showing that you have equal status to this prospect, that you're just as busy as well. Because if you go in and say, oh yeah, I'll be quick and whatever, all that does is you're signaling to the prospect that that their time should be respected, but your time as a salesperson should not be respected. And that lowers your status in their brain. That's not something you want to happen. Okay, let's keep going here. This is going to be interesting.
And I guess the way I usually work is I kind of want to know about you, your company, what kind of challenges you're facing right now, what's right in your business, what's wrong in your business. And based on that, what we do here at LMK is we kind of tailor make our strategies to directly suit our clients' needs. We have 3 areas of excellence we focus on. Capital markets, hedging strategies, commodities hedging, finance for your business. B, investment banking, meaning if you're looking to go public, raise any money for specific projects, both foreign and domestic. And lastly, of course, asset management, your land, your trucks, and trying to maximize your value there. But again, that's just broad areas. I look to each client kind of as a unique situation. We try to kind of tailor that in. So if you had to say one thing right now in your business that was kind of like giving you the most.
Now, just a couple of tweaks I would do, and this is fine if you want to kind of give an overview of what you do. I typically do it a little bit differently. I typically want to take the focus immediately off me and put it on the prospect. So when I was in the trenches like you, I didn't want to just start talking. I wanted the prospect to start talking. I wanted the prospect to start telling me why they were possibly looking for what I had. Okay. So and I don't know how this appointment was set up. I don't know if he had an SDR call and booked this appointment. I don't know if he did this. It might be a role play. I have no idea. Okay. It's a good role play. It is because what the prospect does. But let's say you're in this situation and an SDR cold called, set up this appointment. You're the salesperson coming, or you did that. Or let's just say an SDR did that. Okay. So I might start by saying, so, hey, I know you were talking with one of my associates, Julie, the other day. When you guys were talking, what was it that you guys were kind of discussing that caused you to, want to look into this further? Now, notice how neutral I am. I'm not saying that caused you to want to meet with me and talk about my solution. That's too assumptive early on. If you're too assumptive early on, without having trust and credibility here in the first minute, which you're probably not going to have, a lot of A-types will push back and they'll be like, well, I'm just kind of looking around. I'm not saying I'm ready to buy. I'm just kind of looking at my options. And the guard's already up. Like you've already triggered sales resistance. So I'm more neutral. Yeah, so when you were talking with Julie, what was it that you guys were kind of, I guess, going over that caused you to, hey, want to look into this further? See how neutral I am. See how my hands are raised like this. It affects my tonality, okay? Now, what I'm also doing, when the prospect tells me what was it that they went over that caused them to, want to have this conversation, I'm going to word it differently. Not only are you finding out details, but more importantly, the prospect is reminding themselves on why they're even in this conversation, like why they even booked it, like problems. Why do they even have this conversation? Because what is the number one thing that every prospect thinks about when a salesperson starts talking to them? What do you think about when a salesperson starts talking about what they offer to you? Most things you're going to think about is how much is this going to cost? So as a consumer, you could be a business owner, you could be, it doesn't matter. Every human being, when a salesperson first starts talking to them, the biggest thing they think about, even in the beginning, is how much is this going to cost? So that's called price or cost-based thinking. They have that frame. We want to take them out of that way of thinking, into that frame, and we want to reframe into a new way of thinking, a new frame, which is results-based thinking. Okay, and I'm going to show you some techniques to do this, maybe even for your industry here in a minute. Let's keep going. This is getting good.
What would it be?
I even took some notes for you.
In terms of growth, stopping you from growing as fast as you could.
It's probably uncertainty around China. We're a business that's really got its history very much rooted in Australia. Mm-hmm. We've had some experience in Singapore and Hong Kong.
Right, different markets.
China's really unknown to us. I guess the question of setting up facilities in China, whether we go down that path or whether we can continue to do it out in Australia. Mm-hmm. It's been something I've been meaning to talk to my background about. We've kind of discussed around the edges before, but we haven't really talked about it in depth.
Right. Let me ask you a question. I was doing some more research on the industry, and one of the things that stuck out is that, in fact, there's still a...
Now, I like this. Let me ask you a question. I would just reword it a little bit, because a lot of times prospects, when you say, let me ask you a question, or let me ask you something, and you just ask it, a lot of prospects will feel like you're steamrolling them, like you didn't get their permission to ask that, especially A-type personalities. Sometimes they'll give you pushback. So a way to just tweak that and reword it is say, can I can I ask you something? That's simple. Okay, see the verbal pause there. Can I ask you something? They're always going to say yes. They're never going to say, no, you cannot ask me anything. Lost my pen there. So they're never going to say, no, you cannot ask me a question. And it's almost like you're getting their permission, but it's impossible for them to say, no, you can't ask me anything. It's just an easier way to do it. You want that little verbal pause. You want to say, can I ask you a question? Because that sounds too fast. It's too weird. It's like the reason why prospects give you a lot of vague, generalized answers, surface level answers, because you ask your questions too fast. So notice the verbal pause. Can I ask you something? Yeah, what's going on? See how I lean in like it's a serious question, okay? Now, the only thing I would do differently, because when George says, I've been doing a lot of research on your industry, the only red flag that could be in a prospect's brain is, oh, he doesn't really understand my industry. Not necessarily even that. He doesn't really work with companies in my industry if he's doing research on companies in my industry. So some prospects that will trigger that thought process. So I want to eliminate that. So I was on your website looking up some info, I was on your website the other day and you were talking about, it's just a different way to reword it where you prevent an objection from happening where they're like, he doesn't understand my industry because he's just now doing research. So just a little tweak there that I would do.
Massive growth potential for you here domestically in Australia, right? You're really scratching the surface domestically. Yeah. You have a good market share, but obviously the market's growing here pretty much, 15, 16% a year. There's still so you also kind of building the current market share as well?
Absolutely. We've certainly got strong customer relationships here in Australia. I think there's a lot of opportunities.
So what I would say is I noticed on your website, you're at about 15% market share, domestically. Can you walk me through how you're growing domestically, what process that is, or what you're doing to really even grow domestically here in Australia? So I'm just going to say one word that a sentence I noticed rather than 3 or 4 sentences. And I noticed you're about 15% domestically here in Australia. Can you walk me through how you're really growing that to get up to maybe 20 or 25% over the next few years? And then I'm finding out what their current situation is. If I'm in this industry, right? I need to understand what their real situation is. Just a different way.
I think we've got a unique opportunity in China because of our accreditation standards. And the Chinese are very...
Which is not easy to get.
No, I think we might be the only Australian company that has it. Right. So, we could go very comfortably just focusing on Australia, and that might be the best path. I'm not sure, but the China opportunity just is dangling out there, I guess.
Right. I know. It's kind of like I do, not just obviously in the organics. I mean, pretty much every business is high tech, low tech. Yeah. And everyone's China's like this kind of this 900-pound gorilla in every conversation. And the idea, I think that's the question, the challenge everyone faces. We know we got to go there. There's a massive market there, but how do we get there in a way which is basically risk averse, but allows us to kind of test the waters, and if we hit it, to kind of expand quickly and capitalize.
Yeah, you're right. And the risk thing for us is really important. I mean, while we've got some ambitious plans, we don't want to take up too much risk.
Right. No, makes sense. And in terms of you, where do you fit?
Now, here's what I noticed here. The prospect said risk. He said the risk management or risk. I can't remember what he said. The risk is really important to us, yet we've got some ambitious plans. Now, I don't know what that means. So that's scary for me if I don't really know what he means there. So I don't want to guess later on. Hold on. When you say risk is important to you, tell me what's behind that, just so I understand. Well, yeah, because we tried to get into this market in Singapore last year and it totally bombed or whatever. And now I find, okay, they went into another market. If I'm in this industry, they totally bombed. So now I know that they might have hesitation, even though they have ambition, hesitation about going into, let's say, China. And I don't know the whole background of this. And so now I know that that's something that I've got to help him and that company overcome that fear if something happened in the past where they lost money because they took a big risk. I've got to make sure that they understand that this is really not that risky. Okay, but if I don't clarify what they mean by risk, I don't really know and I'm guessing. So it's just a simple clarifying question I would have added there. Just my pace.
Fit in with the company in terms of what's your what's your kind of division of responsibility? Do you manage the entire company, or how does it work?
Yeah, so I'm a major shareholder of the company, and I manage the operations day to day. So I'm very hands-on the operational side of the company.
And how about the brothers, the guys that
So right when he said that, what I would do just to cause him to let his guard down even more. Oh, okay, so the CEO. So you're the smart guy that actually does all the work, right? And everybody gets all the money. Oh, no. And just makes them laugh. It's a playful tone. Okay, so anytime you ask somebody what they do in that business, if you're selling B2B or whatever it is, okay, and they're like, oh, I do this. Okay, so now depending on what it is, you could make a different joke for somebody else. Let's say if it's like, oh, I'm XYZ's executive assistant. Okay, so you're really the boss then, and you really run the whole ship over here, right? Oh, yes, I do. It's identity frame. I'm getting them into identity frame that I want them to feel good to let their guard down and build some more trust. If it's a COO or a CEO, okay, so you're the smart one that really does all the work, right? While everybody else gets paid, is that what it is? And they're just laughing. Okay, it's just a way to get their guard down. Okay, just a tweak there that you could do to lower their guard.
Those are the two.
One of my brothers is quite involved, but probably not quite as involved.
I'm going to fast forward this a little bit. There's a lot of talking in here.
These companies don't tend to collaborate all that well. They tend to kind of keep a lot of their secrets to themselves. But I mean, I'm not close to the idea, but I just have some reservations.
I mean, the reason I say is because one of the things that
listen to what the prospect means, not just what they say. He actually meant and said something. I'm not closed off to that idea. I just have a little bit of hesitation. Now, in my mind, I don't know exactly what they said before that would have triggered him to say that. But if it's something that I have to deal with, because this might be an objection down the road, maybe this wasn't for Jordan, because I don't understand the context behind this conversation. I said, you seemed a bit hesitant when I asked that question. What's behind that? You can tell me. It's off the record. You can tell me. And like, well, I'm hesitant because of, and now they tell you the concern. Oh, well, in that case, and then you can answer it. And now you don't have that objection when you're trying to close at the end or go to the next step to set up the appointment or whatever you're selling. Okay, just a technique to prevent the objection from happening.
We specialize in is, we're as a global merchant banker, we have strategic alliances all over the world, and especially.
Now, I like what Jordan starts to say here. Is like, well, I asked you that because one of the things that we do is we specialize in blank, blank, blank. That's a really good frame. I would just frame it a little bit differently. I would just tweak it. And I would say, well, the reason why I asked you is that's actually one of the biggest reasons why companies in your space come to us is because they come to us because they want our network, they want our this, they're wanting that. Like if we were able to open that up, would that help you possibly grow more in China? Yeah, what would that be? Now, I did a few things here. I said, the reason why I asked you is one of the biggest reasons why companies like yours comes to us. Now, what does that build? Legitimacy, credibility, that you handle this problem or these problems all the time, and that companies like his, that's the biggest reason why they come to you. That means you have higher status. Companies are coming to you to solve this problem. So what that does in the prospect's brain is it causes them to feel like you have legitimacy, you're more credible. That doesn't mean just because you do that one thing that your credibility goes through the roof, but at least it's starting to raise, right? So it reduces the prospect at the end saying, I need to do more research, or can you send me references? Like those objections go out the window when you seed little things like that as statements, rather than saying, oh, well, don't worry because we're the biggest in the market and you'll never have that problem. That doesn't seed credibility. Even if you are, every salesperson says those type of things. So it lowers your credibility because you sound like everybody else. Okay. So I'm just going to reframe it and say, well, the reason why I asked you is because that's actually the biggest reason why companies in your space come to us is because they want access to our network. They want access to this and that to help them grow in these other countries. Would that help you if we were able to give you access to all that? Nobody's going to say no. They're like, yeah, well, how do you guys do that? And it triggers curiosity as well. Okay.
In China. Yeah. So one of the things we could do is actually introduce you to kind of various people along every element of the supply chain, whether it's simply purchasing an organic, concern, or simply, getting you in touch with the right people for trucking, right people for any part of production, and of course distribution. So kind of to help you there, just to kind of put you in touch with the right people, operation, save her a tremendous amount of money domestically and overseas on our commodities hedging, okay, and on some of our currency swaps that she was doing. And the ways we did that is because we understand the.
No, this is good. He's telling a story about another client that he has. And I don't know if it's in this space or the space. He's telling the story of the struggle they had and why they came to him and how they solved it. I think that, I don't know the full context behind this meeting, but I think that works. I would just always start that frame with, well, actually the other day, and in fact, it brings up a company in your sector that came to us about a year ago, XYZ company. And the reason why they came to us is because of the same issue that you're having. And see, I would just frame it that way. The reason why they came to us. Okay. So it's like you're getting the prospect to start to qualify to you because you're talking about all these other companies that are coming to you for the same issues that this prospect once solved. That's why everybody else is doing it. It's the herd theory in the brain. Okay. Social dynamics 101. If the herd is going this way, that must be a good thing. So I just start following the herd. That's the way most of our brains are wired, to follow the herd. If they're going one way, we think it's good.
There are certain peculiarities to our industry, but at the same time, there are also some commonalities that apply to all industries. So we're able to come up with a model that directly suited her needs, that would address, she has similar, not exact similar concerns in the sense that she produces too, a little bit different in a different industry, but she's producing, not sure what she's going to sell. So it's important that listen, I know over the long term, we can do a lot of stuff for you, but I think I could best serve you by just starting off doing one thing for you. Okay, and then let me just start and try to do one thing for you really, really well.
Now, what he's doing here is he's starting to frame, and I've noticed that Jordan does that. Maybe it's just the Wolf on Wall Street show, or maybe that was fiction in the movie. But he always talks a lot about like, hey, let me do this one smaller thing, right? Because it's an easier decision for the prospect. Smaller thing, less money, right? And let me prove my results, and then I'm going to get you for the bigger thing. Now, you can use those techniques if you want. I typically start high, and then if they can't get the funding, I start to downsell low, okay? Because it seems like it's a better deal. Typically, I don't have to do that because I built a big enough gap when I was in the trenches like you and foreign industries I sold in, from where that prospect is to where they want to be, where they felt like, let's say if I was the second industry, I sold debt relief services. I built such a big gap where they realized how much money they were losing in interest every month as a company, where by paying the fee for us to take that over and refinance all that stuff, paying that fee was like pennies compared to all the money they were going to lose if they kept paying that amount of debt with that high of interest rate, if that makes sense. So it built such a big gap that it didn't matter what number I threw out. They were so emotionally involved at that point and triggered so much urgency that they didn't need to talk to anybody else because they emotionally bonded. I could attach their emotions to their problems and how the problems were like affecting their entire business and their entire lives, even if this is a huge company we're talking about. Okay. And I'll show you some techniques on that in a second. You'll want to stay here. Now, hey, if you have questions about this, like if you have questions about, hey, how would I do this? How would I do this for what I sell? Or, the prospect told me the other day that I need to think it over. I didn't know how to resolve it. Or, there's just an objection you're getting. You're wondering maybe how to prevent it. The easiest way to get a hold of me, because I rarely respond to comments on here, is simply to text me. Okay, so I'll give you my number just one time. It's 480-637-2944. Okay, so you're welcome to text me. And sometimes it takes me a little while to answer your questions. And either myself or one of our sales trainers, because I usually have sales trainers in a conference room, much bigger here. We sit around here for a few hours a day. We just respond to text messages on like 6 phones. So we will answer your question, right? So you're welcome to text me if you want to get your questions answered about selling.
I don't want to interfere what you do with Titan. I'm sure they're great and everything. I know them. They're a very good, reputable company. Respect them. But we specify in something a little bit different. And one of the first things I love to...
Now, I love the frame that he did here. I don't want to disrespect you with Titan. They're a great company, blah, blah, blah. But now, when he says but, the only problem in the English language, when you say something nice and then you say but, it basically negates everything you just said in that person's mind. So it'd be like if you're married and you're talking to your beautiful wife or husband or whatever, and you're like, hey, honey, I really love your dress, but I just don't really like the way your shoes look. She's not going to remember that you like the dress at all. She's going to remember the thing you said you don't like, okay? Because it negated everything you just said. Hey, I totally agree with what you said, but here's my perspective. Well, no, you didn't agree with it. See, you negated what you just said. So you want to be careful with the word but, and I'm sure Jordan knows this. Sometimes I slip on that up when I was in sales. I'd say but, and I'm like, shit, I can't believe I said that. I guarantee Jordan knows that. Now, instead of saying that the company you're with is a great company, I don't want to say they're a bad company either, because Jordan knows that would trigger resistance because it looks like you're biased. but I don't also want to say they're great. I want to be in the middle. Yeah, I mean, Titan that you've been with, I mean, they're fairly decent. I mean, you've been with them 7 years. I mean, what's caused you to feel like they might not be able to get you really expanding into China, though? Now, see what I just did there, okay? It's very subtle with my tone, okay? The words fairly decent are in the middle, but the way I said it with my tone signifies what? That I might know something about them that's not that good, because nobody wants something fairly decent, right? Now listen to my tone. Yeah, I mean, Titan, you've been with them for 7 years. I mean, they're fairly decent firm. I mean, see how my tone starts to seed doubt that I know something that's not that good. So I'm automatically seeding doubt, but I'm not triggering the prospect to get defensive and say, oh no, they're great. They're not going to say that because I'm neutral in the middle, but my tone signifies that I do know something that might not be so good. And then I'm going to wrap that question around. So rather than asking like, hey, what are some challenges that you have? Or what are some problems you have? Because most prospects know where that script leads to. They know where that question leads to, right? They know that you're trying to extract problems. And that's why they don't tell you a lot. They give you surface level answers. So I want them to defend themselves on why they might be looking to change. So I'm going to reframe that question and say, so you've been with Titan the last 7 years. I mean, they're fairly decent. I mean, what's caused you to feel like you might want to look at someone else? Well, don't get us wrong. We like Titan, but, and then they start telling you things they don't like because I got them to defend themselves on why they might be looking. Notice I said might be because I haven't built a big enough gap yet to assume yet. I'm still kind of neutral, but it gets them to defend themselves on why they might be looking for somebody else like Jordan. See what I'm saying there? See how I'm doing that, okay?
To try is take a look at exactly what you're doing with your commodities, the hedging strategies and the currency stuff. With the stuff you're doing both in Singapore, Hong Kong, and China.
Yeah.
Okay, and I want to get in there right away, straight away, and I want to go in there and give me a shot to beat it. Mm-hmm. Like, let me work. Give me 30 days. I'll do my trade small. Start small. Don't stop what you're doing. Put a small amount of your trades through me, and then analyze in 30 days the percentage gain. Mm-hmm. And if I'm even half as good as I say I believe, you'll be moving all your business over to me after that. That sound fair enough?
Well, I mean, I'm not particularly worried about where we're at in that space. I mean, what particularly would you want to be doing?
Yeah, do you see how he triggered the prospect to react that way? And I know Jordan, if he had more time, probably would have built a bigger gap, right? He's only got 20 minutes, okay? So the problem is he didn't, in my mind, build a big enough gap yet to go in for that soft close. So what he's doing is he's like doing like a soft close. Like, is that fair enough? Okay, after 10 minutes. He's like, let me start small. I'll prove myself, blah, 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 blah. I think that's good. I would build a bigger gap before I tried to close here. I might go 3-4 minutes and actually build a gap from where that prospect is to where they want to be. Because so far, I haven't heard really much pain from the prospect. I've heard more talking between both of them. But the prospect so far, and like I said, maybe this is just a role play or something. I'm not sure. So I'll give Jordan the benefit of the doubt. He's obviously was a great salesperson, back in the 80s and 90s and all that stuff. So obviously knows what he was doing. But there's no gap here. So the prospect automatically is triggered. He's like, well, I'm not necessarily ready. I don't think we're doing that bad in that part. So then objection happens right there. I want to prevent that objection from happening. I want to build a bigger gap. Less talking, more questions, and getting the prospect to relive their pain. So going into China though, because a lot of companies come to us for that. That's a big reason why they want to work with us. Going into that market, why so important to you now though? See, that's a probing question. Now, I'm not going to ask that in the first 2 minutes, but I might ask that 5, 6, 7 minutes in, and I have that verbal pause. Why so important to you guys now though? See that the little verbal pause right before now though. Now, where did I force the prospect's brain to think about? Why is it important now? Like the timing. Why now? That triggers what? More urgency for them to change their situation, because obviously they would never have this meeting if they felt that they had the right company that could get them in there, or the right the right broker, whatever they're selling. I don't know the context here.
Well, let me ask you a question. First of all, does the overall idea in terms of of us advising you, not just in one area but all areas, make sense to you that it could be an asset over the long? Does that appeal to you?
Well, I guess it certainly does. It just depends on, what it's going to cost us.
Right. Well, exactly.
See where he's framing there. Like the overall strategy of this and this, does that appeal to you? And the prospect says yes, but then they say what? Well, it depends on how much it's going to cost. Now, here's where I would do this a lot differently. In the very beginning of the conversation, remember I told you what is the biggest way of thinking any human being thinks when they first start talking to a salesperson. Every human being thinks, how much is it going to cost me? When a salesperson approaches you, one of the first things you start to think about, you might not ask it, is how much is this going to cost? Is it going to be, can I afford it? You're instantly thinking that. That is called cost-based thinking or a cost-based frame. So in the very beginning, I wanted to ask questions that take the prospect out of that way of thinking, that frame of cost or price, and I want to reframe them. I want to deframe them out of that way of thinking. It's called a deframe. That's for a whole nother video. Look, if you want to know about deframing, how do you deframe a prospect out of a way of thinking so you prevent objections, text me. I can tell you that. It's 480-637-2944. I'll explain that to you. I'm going to deframe them out of that way of thinking, and I'm going to reframe them into a new way of thinking. That is results-based thinking. So at the very beginning, I might have said, okay, so yeah, you were talking with my assistant, Julie. She said that you asked us to come in to kind of go over maybe different ways on how we could possibly help you get into more of the, the Chinese market so you could really grow and scale the company there, right? If that's what I was selling. So let's say if I'm selling business consulting, I just gave an example of that. So you can grow and scale your business in that market, right? So if I'm selling business consulting, what's the result of that? Grow and scale their business. That would be the result of business consulting, okay? If he's talking about, I don't know what this company does here. I don't know the context, but if it's financial service, so you can, grow and, to get into the Chinese markets, you really grow your company's, your profit margins, or grow your profit, or grow your company's revenue, or, your company's net worth that they're investing in, or whatever that is. Like I said, I don't know the full context, but right there, those type of questions start to get the prospect out of price or cost-based thinking and frame them into results-based thinking, the end result of what you're offering, okay? Not the thing. I always say you're not selling the thing. You're not selling your product or service. You're selling the results of what your thing does, okay? That's results-based thinking. So you get way less of how much is this going to cost me, because now I've got their brain to focus on the end result of where they want to be. Make sense?
Exactly, and of course, cost always in the end comes down to it, but it's not just so much cost, it's also the value you get for the cost, right? Yeah. But one of the things we pride ourselves on, okay?
Now that was a good one. It's not about, it always comes down to the price at the end, and it also comes down to the value of the cost or whatever it said. That's a good frame that he put him in, because that makes sense. Like, yeah, that makes sense. So that was a good frame there that he did there. I would do it a little bit differently. I would say, yeah, it just depends on, what a company views more expensive. I mean, is it more expensive to get the funding together and we're able to help you get into into China, and you guys are able to, let's say we only help you get a 20% return on your money? Or is it more expensive for you guys not to even get into the market and you stay at, the 6% you're getting here in Australia? If that's what he said. See, I don't know the context. That's a comparative frame. And then that causes the prospect like, look, oh yeah, it's more expensive if we just stay at 6% than if we're able to get into this other market and go to 20%. That's way better for us. It's more expensive if I don't do anything. So I'm just reframing them back into results-based thinking. Just a different tweak I would do myself.
Just, as a company, and the true beauty of what we do is that every transaction that we do with you, okay, we're looking always at two things. A, to keep costs down as much as possible. Anything, whether it's brokerage, hedging, helping you purchase an asset you didn't think you could afford, helping you expand into a new market, going public perhaps, okay, getting a bridge loan in a foreign market. Of course, we always look at cost, okay? But we also look at 3 to 5 years down the road, okay? Because sometimes the cheapest money is not the best money. So, of course, we'll lay both options out to you. I'll say, listen, you can do it this way and save yourself, 3 basis points, or you can maybe pay 2 basis points more, but you'll be in aligned with the top people in China, okay? That'll be more flexible with terms and also allow you to grow, facilitate let you grow to where exactly, this is not going to be a $50 million company forever, obviously only a $250 million company. So we look at both the short term and long. Does that make sense to you? Do you like that program?
Look, in theory, it sounds good, but I mean, at the end of the day, it sounds like you deal with a lot of big companies, and we're not a huge company. It's a pretty simple business model, actually. So I'm just wondering if it's a little bit too much and too complex for us.
See how I triggered that reaction from the prospect? Now, it's a good frame, but then he started talking about all the big companies he helps and those type of things. Now, a lot of times as salespeople, we think if we talk about all, let's say, it just depends on the industry, but if we talk about all the great clients we have, or let's say if you sell B2B and you talk about all the big companies you have, But let's say you're talking to a smaller company because you feel like, hey, if I talk about like, hey, we have this client, and they're all big, and you're talking to a small company, what objection would you might get? Well, like he gave, the small company's like, well, sounds like you just deal with big companies. We're a small company though. Probably wouldn't work for us. See what I'm saying there? How you trigger that. So I don't want to say that. I literally don't want to even talk about the big companies. I can say, well, the reason why, big companies, mid-sized companies, smaller companies, come to us is because, so I'm preventing that objection from happening by including, if I'm selling B2B, any size company, if I'm talking about the size of a company. Or I could just say the reason why companies in your industry come to us is because. See, that's more, the reason why companies of your size come to us, that's probably the better frame there. Yeah, the reason why companies of your size come to us so often is because, so now I prevented that objection. There's no way the prospect's going to come back and say, well, it sounds like you work only with big companies. He or she won't even have the objections. I prevented it because of how I framed it, if that makes sense.
Okay, so I think that means about 22 million of our overall debt is hedged.
22 million is hedged annually.
Yeah.
Okay, so you have about 20 million. That's fine. Yeah, so you said how much is hedged? About 70% is hedged?
No, I'm hedged.
Unhedged.
Yeah.
Okay, so about 22 million is hedged?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, great. Okay, so you have about 35 or 40 million unhedged, correct?
No, we've got about 150 odd million that's unhedged. No, we've got in terms of our debt.
What's the revenue?
What's our revenue?
I'm talking the revenue.
So this year just gone 27 million.
Okay.
See, I would have found out about what their revenue is a little bit earlier on, maybe 5-6 minutes before, maybe 7-8 minutes before, but on the 7 or 8 mark, if I had 20 minutes, because I need to know where they're at. If I'm selling this, I need to know where they're at compared to where they want to be to build a gap. And I need to get the prospect to understand where they're at. And then I need to get the prospect to tell me and themselves where they really want to be and why that's so important now. That starts to build a gap. There's a lot more to that. All right. So I just want to make sure you understand. You can always text me if you have a question on what I just said there.
Okay, right. So here's the thing. See, I look at that just so you know. Okay, one of the things that a lot of people overlook is that the day-to-day foreign currency exchanges that occur between what you're doing in China and when it comes back to here and vice versa. Your money, show you how you can kind of navigate through the currency markets here and what.
Okay, so here's Jordan's going into his second close. He's looping back around to close again. That's what he's doing, right? Looping, okay?
Effective, elegant way, and the lead will be very, very impressed.
Yeah, look, I mean, it sounds promising. I guess I'm just a little bit cautious. I don't know anything about your company. I don't know if you know this, but the farming industry is built very heavily on trust and loyalty.
Oh, yeah.
The banking relationship I have now has been built up over many years, plus legacy to the family. A lot of farmers get involved with banks, new and new organizations.
Yeah, see, I triggered that. He said, well, it sounds all good in theory. I just don't know anything about you guys. We don't have a relationship, blah, blah. There's a reason why that was triggered in their brain. And that's because so far from what I've heard, unless maybe I missed something here, the prospect really hasn't emotionally opened up. They've stayed pretty surface level from Jordan's questions that he's asking. Now, look, I had some prospects that I had a hard time opening up to, and maybe that's what it is. Maybe this is a hard prospect for Jordan. You're not going to close every single prospect you talk to. That's impossible. That doesn't happen, okay? Even at the highest level, when I was making almost $3 million a year in commissions as a W-2 salesperson, I didn't close everybody, okay? So maybe this was that hard prospect he couldn't open up, but because there's no emotion involved, he couldn't get the prospect to relive their pain of their current situation and then have a fear that there was going to be future pain if this was not solved. The prospect feels no urgency to change. And that's why he keeps saying there's no relationship. I don't know anything about you. That's why it's triggered.
And then with them through the good times, and then they ditch them during the bad times. So I don't know anything about you guys.
Let me ask you a question, honestly. If I've been your broker.
So right when he said that, like, well, we're not, I can always give you our website. We're not that cool, but what would you like to know about us? And I'm right in there. Well, I'd like to know about, and then they're going to tell you, oh, well, in that case, and then you can answer that. It's a way to reframe that. So first of all, when I've triggered sales resistance, and he's like, I don't know anything about you guys, blah, 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 blah. I want to what? Get them to let their guard down, right? So how to do that? I use a playful tone. Well, yeah, we can give you our website. We're not that cool or anything. You might hold on. Are you gonna make fun of our website? And I'm playful, like, no, I would never make fun of your website. And so now they start to laugh. Their guard comes down, and then I immediately go more of a soft, curious tone. Just like, yeah, what would you like to know about the company? And boom, you're right there. Well, I'd like to know about this. Yeah, it just depends. Now, you must have asked me that for a reason that you wanted to know about. What's behind that? Well, the reason why I asked you is, and now I know how to answer that question. Well, in that case, what we do is here. And now I'm resolving the concerns because now I know what the concern is. I'm not guessing what the concern is.
Past 3 or 4 years, making you guys money on a consistent basis. I mean, let's say I ran, a couple years of hedging strategies for you, did some bond offerings for you, kind of just did everything exactly right. You probably wouldn't be saying, let me think about it. Right? You'd say, Jordan, just take over hedging. Am I right about that?
If we had a relationship, yeah.
Of course, I get that. You don't know me, and I don't have a track record. So let me just reintroduce myself to you a little bit. And, tell you about myself, what I said. Again, my name is Jordan Belfort, and I've been with LMK for about 6 years now. Okay, and I want.
See how the prospect made Jordan go on the defensive, though. And this is probably not an easy prospect, right? But he's making go on the defensive where he's like, well, let me reintroduce myself. My name's Jordan Belfort. I'm a salesperson, and we pride ourselves on. I think that's good. And Jordan's really good at talking. And so he can overcome that resistance and still close. A lot of prospects or a lot of salespeople have a hard time doing that. They have a hard time being on the defensive and then just explaining it through just talking and trying to close in by just persuading by talking. For most salespeople, that's hard to do. So an easier way to do this is like I just said, well, yeah, I mean, I can give you our website. Now, hold on. Are you going to make fun of our website if I show it to you? We're not that cool. Oh, I'm sure you guys are cool. I just want to know about it. Well, yeah, in all seriousness, what would you like to know about the company? Well, I'd like to know about this. Okay, well, in this example, here's what we do. And now I know what he wants to know, and I'm answering the questions, and I'm overcoming the concerns. And now who's in control of the conversation? Me. When I'm talking, trying to explain and sell, the prospect is like the puppeteer, and you're like the little puppet, and they're making you do a little dance. Now, Jordan is really, really good at doing that dance and still overcoming them. 99.9% of salespeople are not, okay, because they're just not smooth talkers like that. So if you just reframe that and ask that question, now you're making the prospect do the dance and you're in the one control of the conversation. That's a tweak I would do myself.
One of the top salesmen at the company, and I am a salesman, by the way. I pride myself on actually going out there and going after the people that I know I can help. Okay, but one thing I do is I put my clients' needs above everything else. I work literally round the clock tirelessly. I'm not an analyst. I'm not an investment banker, okay, but I literally will go out.
One thing Jordan has, he has really good certainty. So the prospect reads the tone and the body language that he's certain he can get you that result. I love that. That's one thing I would say that Jordan's really, really talented at is the certainty, and the tone is certain, okay? I would just say keep the certain tone. Just don't go in defensive mode where you're having to explain everything. Just reframe it, okay? Kind of almost, in a playful tone. Well, yeah, oh yeah, I can give you our website and everything. Now hold on, you're not going to think our website's not that cool. You're not going to make fun of us, are you? No, I would never make fun of you. They're going to say, yeah, I'm going to make fun of you. They're like, no, I would never make fun of you. So this is a playful tone. And then I just lean in and say, what would you like to know about the company? And now I'm in control. So much easier, so much quicker. It's just a different frame I would use.
At it, like I'm like a researcher of these people, and I will find the absolute best person.
Because typically, how many salespeople say, yeah, you don't have to worry about it. I'm the number one salesperson. I work the hardest. I do this. I do that. Prospects have heard that before. How many salespeople selling them anything say they're the best? They're going to work the hardest for them. They're going to give them the best result. It's almost in one ear, out the other. Now, Jordan can get away with it because he has a lot more certainty than most salespeople do. I'm just saying there's easier things to do where you don't have to deal with all the sales resistance.
Model, which is why I really believe it fits so well with your business model, the organics, right? Because we are an older line. You start off, in fact, in the cattle. We actually start off in commodities. That's why we built up.
Yeah, so when he says, which I believe is why we're the best or we're the better fit for you, blah, blah. The problem is he has really good certainty. So that's maybe going to close in the deal here. And that's why he closed a lot back in the 80s and 90s. I would say prospects are a lot different. They're more skeptical. There's far more advertising and marketing in their face with social media and the internet now than ever been before. So it's kind of, I call it the post-trust era. If you've read in the book, it's true. Trust has definitely gone down since the 80s and 90s. I can tell you that for sure. It wasn't like it was easy to sell in the 80s or 90s. I'm not making that assumption. It wasn't. But prospects are far more skeptical now. So if you sound like everybody else, their guard just goes up. Okay, so just easier ways to do that in my mind.
Our business around commodities, and from there we went to banking as a result of the hedging. So that's why we're the number one company about hedging and commodities, which is why I think it's a perfect fit. In terms of
so instead of saying that's why we're the number one company hedging fit, just say that's probably that's the biggest reason why companies in your sector tell us they came to us is because of the hedging and hedging. See, it's like third party validation rather than you saying you're number one, because everybody says it's like me saying we're the number one sales training. I'm the number one sales trainer. Well, according to who? Right? That's why I said we are the largest business to consumer sales training company based on annual revenue. So you can look that up on Selling Power Magazine. It's just a ranking. You have to submit your your tax returns and your PLs to prove it, right? If I just said, we're the number one sales training company in the world, you're like, yeah, whatever, dude. Everybody says that. Grandma will tell you that, right? So you want to have third-party validation, okay? Yeah, that's probably the biggest reason why our clients tell us they come to us is because because of our hedging and this and that. That's far more credible than saying we're the number one at this. Even if you are, your prospects don't necessarily believe that because every salesperson selling them anything says that. How many salespeople you talk to that says we're the 17th best in the market? Nobody. Everybody says they're number one.
Just so in terms of me, you'll only be dealing with me. And if there's someone else I want you to meet, they'll be with me. In other words, if I say I got a guy who has a new algorithm that's going to allow us to make an extra 7 basis points a month on the turn, I'm not going to say, hey, the guys come with me. I'll have them come with me, or we can have dinner once, whatever it might be. But it's not going to be 30 faces. It's going to be me and only someone else if I believe that person, okay, can help with the conversation. But if you only want to meet me, hey, you can just be the two of us. But again, all I'm asking for is this. I'm asking to get married right now. Okay, I believe in starting small because I know I can prove myself to you.
Now, this is a good frame that he does. And, I was doing a keynote. There was 2 keynote speakers in an event that I was just at a couple weeks ago in Gold Coast, Australia, myself and Daniel G. Love Daniel G. It's the first time I met him. Spoke on I've spoken at different events with him, but just on different days. But I actually got to meet him. And he talks about selling the exit. You're always selling the exit. You're about to leave. Because it reduces the sales pressure. It lowers the sales resistance. Now, at my company, we call it you're disarming the prospect. Daniel G calls it you're selling the exit. Like you're always about to leave. I'm disarming them. I say, oh, and I apologize. I've only got a few minutes before my next appointment. See, I'm disarming them because they feel like I'm not going to take that much time and try to close them, right? Now, they're not going to come back a few minutes later and say, you just said you have 2 minutes. They don't because I know how to emotionally get them involved. That's what we train you to do.
If I was here saying to you, I want all your business, fire tight and do this, do that, right? You'd say, get the fuck out of here, right? Okay, but I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that I'm confident if you just see a little bit of what I could do, we can use that as a benchmark to go forward. So again, I'm asking for one shot, 30 days, and believe me, you're going to be a client for life. Sound fair enough?
Look, I have to see the numbers, but it sounds reasonable.
Perfect. So let's open up the account now. There we go. Okay.
Oh, okay, that was a role play. I didn't even know that. So yeah, sound fair enough. He just looped back around to close. The one thing that Jordan does really, really well, extremely talented, is his certainty in his tone, okay? So if you want to learn certainty as well, you're welcome to text me, all right? So if you have any questions about what I just did, about this video, some techniques that I talked about that maybe you're unsure of, because it's hard for me to respond to comments on here. I'm just a busy dude. We got a big company. I'm going to give you my number. It's 480-637-2944. So 480-637-2944. And I'm going to have myself and 2, maybe 3 sales trainers. We're going to go in the conference room here in a minute, and we're going to respond back to your text messages, okay? And if you see this overnight or something, we're probably not going to respond to the next day, but go ahead and text us your question, and I can assure you we will get back to you with an answer. Now, I hope that training, breaking down Jordan's call, helped today. He's obviously brilliant. I love the certainty. I showed you a few tweaks that I would do a little bit differently myself, and you're welcome to go ahead and subscribe to this channel. My only thing I would say is if you subscribe to the channel, don't share it with your friends if they're in the same industry as you are. Because if you're competing with them, don't share what I'm going to share with you in this video and other training videos I release every week because you don't want them to learn what I'm going to teach you. Okay? See you soon.